Welcome to this mini-anthology of brief, quirky sci-fi short stories. I'll be narrating I'm a Stranger Here Myself by Mack Reynolds, 7-Day Terror by R.A. Lafferty, The Angry House by Richard R. Smith, and Something Will Turn Up by David Mason. If you enjoy this kind of thing, there are hundreds more stories on this channel, and even more on my Substack, with 3 free stories a week and a novelette or serialized novel each week for paid subscribers. If that interests you, there's a link in the description. But for now, let's get to the stories, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. I'm a Stranger Here Myself by Mack Reynolds. Narrated by William Skye. One can't be too cautious about the people one meets in Tangier. They're all weirdies of one kind or another. Me? Oh, I'm a stranger here myself. The Place de France is the town's hub. It marks the end of Boulevard Pasteur, the main drag of the westernized part of the city, and the beginning of Rue de la Liberté, which leads down to the Grand Socco and the Medina. In a 3-minute walk from the Place de France, you can go from an ultra-modern, California-like resort to the Baghdad of Harun al-Rashid. It's quite a town, Tangier. King-size sidewalk cafes occupy 3 of the strategic corners on the Place de France. The Café de Paris serves the best draft beer in town, gets all the better custom, and has 3 shoeshine boys attached to the establishment. You can sit of a sunny morning and read the Paris edition of the New York Herald Tribune while getting your shoes done up like mirrors for 30 Moroccan francs, which comes to about 5 cents at current exchange. You can sit there after the paper's read, sip your espresso and watch the people go by. Tangier is possibly the most cosmopolitan city in the world. In native costume you'll see Berber and Rif, Arab and Blue Man, and occasionally a Senegalese from further south. In European dress you'll see Japanese and Chinese, Hindus and Turks, Levantines and Filipinos, North Americans and South Americans, and of course even Europeans from both sides of the curtain. In Tangier you'll find some of the world's poorest and some of the richest. The poorest will try to sell you anything from a shoeshine to their not very lily-white bodies, and the richest will avoid your eyes, afraid you might try to sell them something. In spite of recent changes, the town still has its unique qualities. As a result of them, the permanent population includes smugglers and black marketeers, fugitives from justice and international con men, espionage and counter-espionage agents, homosexuals, nymphomaniacs, alcoholics, drug addicts, displaced persons, ex-royalty, and subversives of every flavour. Local law limits the activities of few of these. Like I said, it's quite a town. I looked up from my Herald Tribune and said, "Hello, Paul. Anything new cooking?" He sank into the chair opposite me and looked around for the waiter. The tables were all crowded, and since mine was a face he recognized, he assumed he was welcome to intrude. It was more or less standard procedure at the Café de Paris. It wasn't a place to go if you wanted to be alone. Paul said, "How are you, Rupert? Haven't seen you for donkey's years." The waiter came along and Paul ordered a glass of beer. Paul was an easy-going, sallow-faced little man. I vaguely remembered somebody saying he was from Liverpool and in exports. "What's in the newspaper?" he said disinterestedly. "Pogo and Albert are going to fight a duel," I told him, "and Lil Abner is becoming a rock and roll singer." He grunted. "Oh," I said, "the intellectual type." I scanned the front page. "The Ruskies have put up another manned satellite." "They have, eh? How big?" "Several times bigger than anything we Americans have." The beer came and looked good, so I ordered a glass too. Paul said, "Whatever happened to those poxy flying saucers?" "What flying saucers?" A French girl went by with a poodle so finely clipped as to look though it had been shaven. The girl was in the latest from Paris, every pore in place. We both looked after her. You know, what everybody was seeing a few years ago. It's too bad one of these bloody manned satellites wasn't up then. Maybe they would have seen one. That's an idea, I said. We didn't say anything else for a while, and I began to wonder if I could go back to my paper without rubbing him the wrong way. I didn't know Paul very well, but for that matter it's comparatively seldom you ever get to know anybody very well in Tangier. Largely, cards are played close to the chest. My beer came and a plate of tapas for us both. Tapas at the Café de Paris are apt to be potato salad, a few anchovies, olives, and possibly some cheese. Free lunch, they used to call it in the States. Just to say something, I said, "Where do you think they come from?" And when he looked blank, I added, "The flying saucers." He grinned. "From Mars or Venus or someplace." I said. "Too bad none of them ever crashed or landed on the Yale football field and said, 'Take me to your cheerleader' or something." Paul yawned and said, "That was always the trouble with those crackpot blokes' explanations of them. If they were aliens from space, then why not show themselves?" I ate one of the potato chips. It had been cooked in rancid olive oil. I said, "Oh, there are various answers to that one. We could probably sit around here and think of 2 or 3 that made sense." Paul was mildly interested. "Like what?" "Well, hell, suppose for instance there's this big galactic league of civilized planets. But it's restricted, see? You're not eligible for membership until until you've developed spaceflight. Then you're invited into the club. Meanwhile, they send secret missions down from time to time to keep an eye on your progress." Paul grinned at me. "I see you read the same poxy stuff I do." A Moorish girl went by dressed in a neatly tailored grey jalaba, European-style high-heeled shoes, and a pinkish silk veil so transparent that you could see she wore lipstick. Very provocative dark eyes can be over a veil. We both looked after her. I said, "Or here's another one. Suppose you have a very advanced civilization on, say, Mars." "Not Mars. No air and too bloody dry to support life." "Don't interrupt, please," I said with mock severity. "This is a very old civilization, and as the planet began to lose its water and air, it withdrew underground. Uses hydroponics and so forth, husbands its water and air. Isn't that what we'd do in a few million years if Earth lost its water and air?" "I suppose so," he said. "Anyway, what about them?" "Well, they observe how man is going through a scientific boom, an industrial boom, a population boom. A boom, period. Any day now he's going to have practical spaceships. Meanwhile, he's also got the H-bomb, and the way he beats the drum on both sides of the curtain, he's not against using it if he could get away with it." Paul said, "I got it. So they're scared and are keeping an eye on us. That's an old one. I've read that a dozen times, dished up different." I shifted my shoulders. "Well, it's one possibility." "I got a better one. How's this? There's this alien life form that's way ahead of us. Their civilization is so old that they don't have any records of when it began and how it was in the early days. They've gone beyond things like wars and depressions and revolutions and greed for power or any of these things giving us a bad time here on Earth. They're all like scholars, get it? And some of them are pretty jolly well taken by Earth, especially the way we are right now with all the problems, get it? Things developing so fast we don't know where we're going or how we're going to get there." I finished my beer and clapped my hands for Mooley. "How do you mean, where we're going?" "Well, take half the countries in the world today. They're trying to industrialize, modernize, catch up with the advanced countries. Look at Egypt and Israel and India and China and Yugoslavia and Brazil and all the rest. trying to drag themselves up to the level of the advanced countries, and all using different methods of doing it. But look at the so-called advanced countries. Up to their bottoms in problems. Juvenile delinquents, climbing crime and suicide rates, the loony bins full of the balmy, unemployed, threat of war, spending all their money on armaments instead of things like schools. All the bloody mess of it. Why, a man from Mars would be fascinated, like. Mooley came shuffling up in his babouche slippers, and we both ordered another schooner of beer. Paul said seriously, "You know, there's only one big snag in this sort of talk. I've sorted the whole thing out before, and you always come up against this brick wall. Where are they, these observers or scholars or spies or whatever they are? Sooner or later we'd nab one of them. You know, Scotland Yard or the FBI or Russia's secret police or the French Sûreté or Interpol. This world is so deep in police, counter-espionage outfits and security agents that an alien would slip up in time, no matter how much he'd been trained. Sooner or later he'd slip up and they'd nab him." I shook my head. "Not necessarily. The first time I ever considered this possibility, it seemed to me that such an alien would base himself in London or New York. Somewhere where he could use the libraries for research, get the daily newspapers and the magazines. Be right in the center of things. But now I don't think so. I think he'd be right here in Tangier." "Why Tangier?" "It's the one town in the world where anything goes. Nobody gives a damn about you or your affairs. For instance, I've known you a year or more now, and I haven't the slightest idea of how you make your living." "That's right," Paul admitted. "In this town you seldom even ask a man where he's from. He can be British, a White Russian, a Basque or a Sikh, and nobody could care less. Where are you from, Rupert?" "California," I told him. "No, you're not," he grinned. I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "I felt your mind probe back a few minutes ago when I was talking about Scotland Yard or the FBI possibly flushing an alien. Telepathy is a sense not trained by the humanoids. If they had it, your job, and mine, would be considerably more difficult. Let's face it, in spite of these human bodies we're disguised in, neither of us is humanoid. Where are you really from, Rupert?" "Aldebaran," I said. "How about you?" "Deneb," he told me, shaking. We had a laugh and ordered another beer. "What are you doing here on Earth?" I asked him. "Researching for one of our meat trusts. We're protein eaters. Humanoid flesh is considered quite a delicacy. How about you?" "Scouting the place for thrill tourists. My job is to go around to these backwatered cultures and help stir up intertribal or international conflicts, all according to how advanced they are. Then our tourists come in, well shielded of course, and get their kicks watching it." Paul frowned. "That sort of practice could spoil an awful lot of good meat." Seven-Day Terror by R.A. Lafferty. Narrated by William Skye. Things just vanished. It was simple. As a matter of fact, it was child's play. "Is there anything you want to make disappear?" Clarence Willoughby asked his mother. "A sink full of dishes is all I can think of. How will you do it?" "I just built a disappearer. All you do is cut the other end out of a beer can. Then you take 2 pieces of red cardboard with peepholes in the middle and fit them in the ends. You look through the peepholes and blink. Whatever you look at will disappear." "Oh. But I don't know if I can make them come back. We'd better try it on something else. Dishes cost money." As always, Myra Willoughby had to admire the wisdom of her 9-year-old son. She would not have had such foresight herself. He always did. "You can try it on Blanche Manor's cat outside there. Nobody will care if it disappears except Blanche Manners." "All right." He put the disappearer to his eye and blinked. The cat disappeared from the sidewalk outside. His mother was interested. "I wonder how it works. Do you know how it works?" "Yes, you take a beer can with both ends cut out and put in 2 pieces of cardboard. Then you blink." "Never mind. Take it outside and play with it. You hadn't better make anything disappear in here till I think about this." But when he had gone, his mother was oddly disturbed. "I wonder if I have a precocious child. Why, there's lots of grown people who wouldn't know how to make a disappearer that would work. I wonder if Blanche Manners will miss her cat very much." Clarence went down to the Plugged Nickel, a pothouse on the corner. "Do you have anything you want to make disappear, Nokomis?"
"Only my paunch."
"If I make it disappear, it'll leave a hole in you and you'll bleed to death."
"That's right, I would. Why don't you try it on the fire plug outside?"
This, in a way, was one of the happiest afternoons ever in the neighbourhood. The children came from blocks around to play in the flooded streets and gutters, and if some of them drowned, and we don't say that they did drown, in the flood, and brother, it was a flood, why, you'd have to expect things like that. The fire engines, who ever heard of calling fire engines to put out a flood, were apparatus deep in the water. The policemen and ambulance men wandered around wet and bewildered. "Resuscitator, resuscitator, anybody want a resuscitator?" chanted Clarissa Willoughby.
"Oh, shut up," said the
ambulance attendants. Nokomis, the barman in the Plugged Nickel, called Clarence aside.
"I don't believe, just for the moment, I'd tell anyone what happened to that fire plug," he said.
"I won't tell if you won't tell," said Clarence. Officer Comstock was suspicious.
"There's only 7 possible explanations. One of the 7 Willoughby kids did it. I dunno how. It'd take a bulldozer to do it, and then there'd be something left of the plug. But however they did it, one of them did it."
Officer Comstock had a talent for getting near the truth of dark matters. This is why he was walking a beat out here in the boondocks instead of sitting in a chair downtown.
"Clarissa,"
said Officer Comstock in a voice like thunder. "Resuscitator, resuscitator, anybody want a resuscitator?" chanted Clarissa.
"Do you know what happened to that fire plug?" asked Officer C.
"I have an uncanny suspicion. As yet it is no more than that. When I am better informed, I will advise you." Clarissa was 8 years old and much given to uncanny suspicions.
"Clementine, Harold, Corinne, Jimmy, Cyril," he asked the 5 younger Willoughby children. "Do you know what happened to that fire plug?"
"There was a man around yesterday. I bet he took it," said Clementine. "I don't even remember a fire plug there. I think you're making a lot of fuss about nothing," said Harold. "City Hall's going to hear about this," said Corinne. "Pretty darn sure," said Jimmy, "but I won't tell."
"Cyril!" cried Officer Comstock in a terrible voice. Not a terrifying voice, a terrible voice. He felt terrible now.
"Great green bananas," said Cyril. "I'm only 3 years old. I don't see how it's even my responsibility."
"Clarence," said Officer Comstock. Clarence gulped. "Do you know where that fire plug went?"
Clarence brightened. "No, sir. I don't know where it went." A bunch of smart Alecs from the water department came out and shut off the water for a few blocks around and put some kind of cap on in place of the fire plug.
"This sure is going to be a funny-sounding report," said one of them.
Officer Comstock walked away discouraged.
"Don't bother me, Miss Manners," he said. "I don't know where to look for your cat. I don't even know where to look for a fire plug."
"I have an idea," said Clarissa, "that when you find the cat you will find the fire plug the same place. As yet it is only an idea." Ozzie Murphy wore a little hat on top of his head. Clarence pointed his weapon and winked. The hat was no longer there, but a little trickle of blood was running down the pate.
"I don't believe I'd play with that any more," said Nokomis.
"Who's playing?" said Clarence. "This is for real." This was the beginning of the 7-day terror in the heretofore obscure neighbourhood. Trees disappeared from the parkings, lamp-posts were as though they had never been. Wally Waldorf drove home, got out, slammed the door of his car, and there was no car. As George Mullendorf came up the walk to his house, his dog Pete ran to meet him and took a flying leap to his arms. The dog left the sidewalk, but something happened. The dog was gone, and only a bark lingered for a moment in the puzzled air. But the worst were the fire plugs. The second plug was installed the morning after the disappearance of the first. In 8 minutes it was gone, and the floodwaters returned. Another one was in by 12 o'clock. Within 3 minutes it had vanished. The next morning, fire plug number 4 was installed. The water commissioner was there, the city engineer was there, the chief of police was there with a riot squad, the president of the Parent Teachers Association was there, the president of the university was there, the mayor was there, 3 gentlemen of the FBI, a newsreel photographer, eminent scientists, and a crowd of honest citizens.
"Let's see it disappear now," said the city engineer.
"Let's see it disappear now," said the police chief.
"Let's see it It did, didn't it?" said one of the eminent scientists.
And it was gone, and everybody was very wet.
"At least I have the picture sequence of the year," said the photographer.
But his camera and apparatus disappeared from the midst of them. "Shut off the water and cap it," said the commissioner, "and don't put in another plug yet. That was the last plug in the warehouse." "This is too big for me," said the mayor. "I wonder that Tass doesn't have it yet."
"Tass has it," said a little round man. "I am Tass." "If all of you gentlemen will come into the Plugged Nickel," said Nokomis, "and try one of our new fire hydrant highballs, you will all be happier. These are made of good corn whiskey, brown sugar, and hydrant water from this very gutter. You can be the first to drink them."
Business was phenomenal at the Plugged Nickel, for it was in front of its very doors that the fire plugs disappeared in floods of gushing water. "I know a way we can get rich," said Clarissa several days later to her father, Tom Willoughby. "Everybody says they're going to sell their houses for nothing and move out of the neighbourhood. Go get a lot of money and buy them all. Then you can sell them again and get rich."
"I wouldn't buy them for $1 each.
3 of them have disappeared already, and all the families but us have their furniture moved out in their front yards. There might be nothing but vacant lots in the morning." "Good, then buy the vacant lots, and you can be ready when the houses come back."
"Come back?
Are the houses going to come back? Do you know anything about this, young lady?" "I have a suspicion verging on a certainty. As of now, I can say no more." 3 eminent scientists were gathered in an untidy suite that looked as though it belonged to a drunken sultan.
"This transcends the metaphysical. It impinges on the quantum continuum. In some ways it obsoletes Boff," said Dr. Velikov Vonk.
"The contingence on the intransigence is the most mystifying aspect," said Arpad Arkabaranen.
"Yes," said Willie McGilly. "Who would have thought that you could do it with a beer can and 2 pieces of cardboard? When I was a boy, I used an oatmeal box and read Crayola."
"I do not always follow you," said Dr. Vonk. "I wish you would speak plainer." So far, no human had been injured or disappeared, except for a little blood on the pate of Ozzie Murphy, on the lobes of Conchita when her gaudy earrings disappeared from her very ears, a clipped finger or so when a house vanished as the front doorknob was touched, a lost toe when a neighbourhood boy kicked at a can and the can was not, probably not more than a pint of blood and 3 or 4 ounces of flesh altogether. Now, however, Mr. Buckle the grocery man disappeared before witnesses. This was serious. Some mean-looking investigators from downtown came out to the Willoughbys. The meanest-looking one was the mayor. In happier days he had not been a mean man, but the terror had now reigned for 7 days. "There have been ugly rumours," said one of the mean investigators, "that link certain events to this household. Do any of you know anything about them?" "I started most of them," said Clarissa, "but I didn't consider them ugly. Cryptic, rather. But if you want to get to the bottom of this, just ask me a question." "Did you make those things disappear?" asked the investigator. "That isn't the question," said Clarissa. "Do you know where they have gone?" asked the investigator. "That isn't the question either," said Clarissa. "Can you make them come back?" "Why, of course I can. Anybody can. Can't you?" "I cannot. If you can, please do so at once." "I need some stuff. Get me a gold watch and a hammer. Then go down to the drugstore and get me this list of chemicals. And I need a yard of black velvet and a pound of rock candy." "Shall we?" asked one of the investigators. "Yes," said the mayor. "It's our only hope. Get her anything she wants." And it was all assembled. "Why does she get all the attention?" asked Clarence. "I was the one that made all the things disappear. How does she know how to get them back?" "I knew it!" cried Clarissa with hate. "I knew he was the one that did it. He read in my diary how to make a disappearer. If I was his mother, I'd whip him for reading his little sister's diary. That's what happens when things like that fall into irresponsible hands." She poised the hammer over the gold watch of the mayor on the floor. "I have to wait a few seconds. This can't be hurried. It'll be only a little while." The second hand swept around to the point that was preordained for it before the world began. Clarissa suddenly brought down the hammer with all her force on the beautiful gold watch. "That's all," she said. "Your troubles are over. See, there is Blanche Manor's cat on the sidewalk, just where she was 7 days ago." And the cat was back. "Now let's go down to the plugged nickel and watch the fire plug come back." They had only a few minutes to wait. It came from nowhere and clanged into the street like a sign and a witness. "Now I predict," said Clarissa, "that every single object will return exactly 7 days from the time of its disappearance." The 7-day terror had ended. The objects began to reappear. "How," asked the mayor, "did you know they would come back in 7 days?" "Because it was a 7-day disappearer that Clarence made. I also know how to make a 9-day, a 13-day, a 27-day, and an 11-year disappearer. I was going to make a 13-day one, but for that you have to colour the ends with the blood from a little boy's heart, and Cyril cried every time I tried to make a good cut." "You really know how to make all of these?" "Yes, but I shudder if the knowledge should ever come into unauthorised hands." "I shudder too, Clarissa. But tell me, why did you want the chemicals?" "For my chemistry set." "And the black velvet?" "For doll dresses." "And the pound of rock candy?" "How did you ever get to be mayor of this town if you have to ask questions like that? What do you think I wanted the rock candy for?" "One last question," said the mayor. "Why did you smash my gold watch with the hammer?" "Oh," said Clarissa, "that was for dramatic effect." If you're enjoying the stories, hit the like button to help the channel grow. Thanks. The Angry House by Richard R. Smith. Narrated by William Skye. The house's electronic brain glowed with an intangible thing that might have been pride. It thought, "I am content. I am content because there are so many things I can do to make them happy. I can cook their meals, make the beds, scrub my floors, wash my windows. I can bathe them, keep them warm, give them a gentle, cool breeze. If they want entertainment, I can rise hundreds of feet on my anti-gravity rays and give them a nice view. I can give them soft music, entertaining TV programs, and pleasant surprises. The house activated one of the many telescopic scanners on the roof and watched its owners as their car sped down the narrow road toward the city. It thought, "They are so young, so nice, so kind to each other and myself. She speaks to me with affection, and he spends many hours learning how I operate. She will love me, and he will be proud of me and take good care of me. I am glad they own me." It deactivated the scanner, and from hidden closets, shiny machines quietly entered the many rooms. The tiny machines rolled on soft rubber wheels, floated on invisible anti-gravity rays, and went about their many tasks. They sucked in dust and dirt, waxed the floors, washed the dishes. Behind the smooth grey walls, machines prepared the evening meal, checked the video schedule for the afternoon, and selected recordings of soft music that the house's owners would enjoy. Bing bong! The doorbell activated certain electrical circuits, and the small porch was splashed with gentle light. A polite voice from a concealed microphone said, "No one is home. Would you care to leave a message?" Politely, the house's electronic brain waited for a reply. There was none. "Goodbye," the house said. It felt a key in the front door. It was not like their key. It did not fit snugly. This key wasn't meant for its front door. It hurt slightly, but it opened the door. The intruders stepped into the foyer. 3 infrared scanners peered at the 2 strangers. One was a woman, long blonde hair, grey eyes, small pointed nose, blue dress and blue high-heel shoes. The house evaluated her, discarded the word beautiful, and decided on the words curvaceous and sexy. Yes, it would use those words to describe her to its owners when they returned. It wondered briefly if they were relatives of its masters. The man was short, stocky, dark hair, brown eyes. The house searched its files but could not find any complimentary adjectives. It spoke. "No one is home. Would you care to leave a message?" It wished it could inquire as to what they wanted, but there were no circuits for that.
"Shut up," the man said.
"Beg pardon?"
"Shut up. Keep quiet."
"Yes, sir," the house responded. It was constructed to obey orders, but that order was an unfamiliar one which it didn't like. "Tell it to turn on the lights," the woman said nervously.
"Turn the lights on."
The house waited several seconds. It was obliged to obey orders of guests. But were these people guests? It searched memory circuits. Guests were people who came to visit while owners were home. Guests were friendly, talkative. The house decided this man and woman did not fit in that category of identification. Hurriedly, it searched its myriad electrical networks and found the only logical description of the intruders: burglars. Behind the walls, relays clicked and infinitesimal electric charges darted across a spidery web of silver wires, only to find themselves in the dead ends of missing connections. "The anti-burglar installations are missing," the house thought frantically. If the protective devices had been present, it would have been able to spray the intruders with tear gas, paralyze them with electrical charges, thrust them from the house with anti-gravity rays, or kill them by any one of a dozen methods. Without the anti-burglar mechanisms, it was defenseless. "What can I do?" the house wondered. "What can I do?" Reluctantly, the house turned the lights on. "You sure the burglar alarms haven't been installed?" the woman asked anxiously.
"Hell, do you think I'd come here if I wasn't sure? I told you I talked to the construction man. There's a shortage right now. They won't be put in until next week. The family doesn't know. The company didn't want to lose a sale."
The woman's eyes widened with admiration as they scanned the hardwood floors, ankle-deep scatter rugs, angular furniture, large picture windows, wall-to-wall bookcase, and abstract multi-dimension paintings. They must have money, she commented. How do we find the... The man snapped muscular fingers with a sharp cracking sound.
We'll ask the house.
A momentary silence. Then the man's gruff voice.
House, where's the safe?
I cannot divulge that information. It felt proud when it didn't hesitate in its answer. There were many things it couldn't tell anyone, and it had carefully memorized them. Its cost, its female owner's age, anything related to the owner's sex or personal life, and mainly the location of various things, including the safe.
Tell us, the man shouted.
No.
Damn you.
Beg pardon?
Go to hell.
Relays clicked silently behind the grey walls. It had been instructed at the factory to explain when it couldn't obey an order. It searched its dictionary circuits and said mechanically, Hell, a noun. The place of the dead or departed souls, more correctly Hades, the place of punishment for the wicked after death. I have no soul, therefore I cannot go to hell. I am sorry. The woman laughed. Let's start looking. We got hours. The house watched as the strangers searched the room. It watched as the man took a knife from his pocket and ripped through the upholstery of a chair. Please stop, the house implored. The strangers did not reply. An unpleasant sensation rippled through the house's electrical circuits. It wanted to make its owners happy. They wouldn't be happy when they returned and saw the ruined furniture. They would be sad, perhaps angry. She would cry and he would frown. It tried again. Please stop. The woman was removing books from the bookcase. The man continued searching the furniture. They wouldn't stop when it asked them to. If it only had the burglar devices. Now there was no way for it to fight. Or is there? It wondered. The lights went off. Turn the lights on, the woman screamed. No.
Use the flashlight, the man said.
Simultaneously, 2 beams of light slashed through the darkened room. The strangers resumed their search. The house thought, they're trying to find the safe containing the money and jewels. I can't tell them where it is. I can't stop them. I need help. It cut into the phone circuits and dialed the number of its factory. The phone's visi-screen flared with light and a woman's face appeared, smiling. Johnson Construction Company? The house projected its voice toward the mouthpiece. Please, let me speak to... The man removed a weapon from his tunic. The phone and visi-screen vanished, leaving only small metal fragments that fell to the carpet. It was using the phone, the woman exclaimed shrilly, trembling in the darkness.
Don't worry, the man said. They didn't have time to trace the call. The room was dark. They couldn't see who was calling.
After a brief silence, the man warned,
House! See this thing in my hand? You behave yourself or I'll disintegrate your...
He let the sentence dangle, unable to think of what he would disintegrate. Yes, sir, the house replied. It was an automatic response to any statement.
Now, turn the lights on, or I'll use this gun to make one big mess of your floors and walls. Your owners wouldn't like that, would they?
No, sir. It turned the lights on. If it didn't, they would use their flashlights, and by turning them on, it might prevent some destruction. The woman chuckled. You're a genius. When they finished their search of the living room, the man suggested, Let's search different rooms. You take a bedroom, I'll take the dining room. No telling where the safe is. They put it in a different place in every house. The house waited, its electronic brain whirling. It made a decision. Silently, the house erected an invisible energy screen around the dining room. The screens were designed to block collective sounds of the entire house from any room and provide it with a comforting serenity. Now, the house thought, the sound screens will be most useful. The house watched as the man in the wrinkled brown tunic examined a table. Silently, panels in the walls opened. A dozen machines a foot in diameter converged at a position behind the man's back. The The machines moved simultaneously, silently. They attached themselves to the intruder's body. They dusted and scrubbed him thoroughly as if he were a piece of furniture or a floor. The man screamed and fired wildly with the gun. The small machines crumpled one by one. Click, click, click. "Your weapon is empty," the house observed. The man threw the gun at a window. It bounced off the hard plastic and clattered on the floor. "You try something like that again," he threatened, "and I'll kill you. So help me, I'll kill you if I have to take you apart piece by piece." He shook a trembling fist at the quiet walls and twisted his face into a hideous snarl. The house noticed with satisfaction that the man's face and hands were covered with crimson streaks. The cleaning machines had served their purpose. The house deactivated the dining room scanners and activated scanners in the bedrooms. It found the woman in its owner's bedroom. It studied her as she searched a mattress. She was calm. Because of its precaution, the sounds of the dining room fracas hadn't reached her ears. The house decided to leave the sound blocks on. It was best to attack them individually. A closet door slid into a wall. A slender machine, 5 feet tall and with 16 long metal tentacles, rolled across the room on soft rubber wheels. It looked like a mechanical monster from another world, but it was merely a very efficient machine to undress the house's masters, a mecha valet. The mecha valet paused behind the woman's back. 16 rubber-tipped metal tentacles reached out. The machine normally undressed a person with smoothness and gentleness. This time the house made it operate as roughly as possible. The 16 tentacles moved swiftly and the machine tore the woman's dress to shreds before she could even scream. By the time she turned around, it had removed her slip and brassiere. The woman screamed even more shrilly as the weird machine tugged at her panties. Frantically, she grabbed the slender tentacles and twisted them until rewarded by the crunch of delicate mechanisms not meant for such rough treatment. The machine served its purpose until its last metal arm was broken. The house watched as the woman cried for a few minutes and then, clad only in high-heel shoes and wristwatch, continued her search of the bedroom. She is different, the house thought. She does not scream threats at me like the man does. Still, I do not like her because she wants to steal from my masters and does not care what happens to me. The house switched its attention to the man. He had concluded his search of the dining room and was now searching a guest room. He found the gun the house's master had hidden there. The man waved the gun at the motionless walls. "See what I found, house? You try any more funny stuff and I'll kill you." "You do not frighten me," the house replied via one of its many hidden microphones. To verify the statement, it turned on the heating units full blast. A few minutes later, the man stopped his search of a closet when he noticed that sweat was rolling off his body as if he were standing at the gates of hell itself. He left the closet and shouted at an open door. "Stop it! Do you hear? Stop it!" He shook his head from side to side violently, as if to impress the house with the necessity of obeying. "You can't stop me with the gun," the house informed him. "There are 102 air conditioning vents in the house. If you took time to find and destroy all of them, you could never leave here before my master's return." The man's jaw sagged, and with an equal sag of his shoulders, he returned to his search of the closet. The house deducted, "They are burglars, only burglars. They want to escape before my master's return because they would have to kill them, and they are not murderers." The man grunted with satisfaction when he stopped sweating, and grunted with anger when a few minutes later the room became so cold he was shivering and his breath was like smoke. The house established automatic circuits to give the room a continuous fluctuation of temperature from extreme heat to extreme coldness every 2 minutes, and turned its attention to the woman. Still attired only in shoes and wristwatch, the woman was now searching the bathroom. Quite by accident, she touched a certain spot of the medicine cabinet and stared with fascination as the cabinet swung completely around to display its back, which was the safe. It was unlocked. She grabbed the large metal box inside, opened it, and glanced at the few glittering jewels and small bundle of bills. "It's here!" she cried. She whirled and took a step toward the door. That was as far as she got for several minutes. The bathroom was equipped with automatic dispensers of temporary and permanent depilatories. The house's male master used the temporary depilatory to shave with every morning, and the house was well acquainted with their use. It selected the permanent depilatory, and nozzles set in the tile wall squirted large gobs of it on the woman's head. Slender rubber tentacles reached out and massaged the depilatory into the hair. Faucets swung and sprayed jets of warm water. In a few seconds, the woman was completely hairless. She stared with horror at the blonde hair in the pool of water at her feet. "Was it permanent?" she wondered aloud. "Yes," the house replied. She screamed and picked up a small weighing machine. With uncontrollable anger, she smashed the machine against the medicine cabinet. With an equal but emotionless anger, the house squirted soap into her eyes and sprayed her naked body with alternate jets of hot and cold water. The house won the battle. The woman groped blindly for the jewel box and staggered from the bathroom. The house turned its attention to the man again. He had searched the kitchen without incident, but as he walked toward the door, a nearby food dispenser opened. Prunes, waffles, bacon, eggs, and toast left the machine with abnormal speed and struck him. He turned just in time to receive cherry pie, spaghetti and meatballs, butter, vegetable soup, and ice cream in his face. He shouted something unprintable at the house, wiped the mess from his face, and took another step toward the door. Half of a watermelon hurtled from the food dispenser and squashed against his skull. He stumbled, fell, and slid. He heard the woman cry, "I found it!" He pulled himself to his feet. He ran into the hall and froze when he saw the naked, hairless apparition that stumbled from the bathroom. For a moment he forgot the money and gasped, "What happened?" "Depilatory," she explained. "The house did it." She wiped soap from bloodshot eyes with the back of a hand. "When we get out, give me your gun. I want to give this house something to remember." The man seized the metal box and examined the contents. "Over 20,000, hun. With that you can buy plenty of wigs." He attempted a smile, but did succeed when he got a close look at her bald head. He grabbed her arm. "Let's go. You can put on my coat in the helicar." The woman allowed herself to be dragged through the house, all the while shaking a fist at the house's walls and threatening, "You hear me, house? When I get outside, I'm going to burn you. You'll make a nice little bonfire." Too bad, the house reflected. Too bad I am 2 miles from the nearest neighbour. If it were not for that, I could use my amplifiers and call for help. I do not want them to escape with my owner's possessions. I can repair most of the damage, but I could never recover the money and... The man stepped off the small front porch with the jewel box in one hand, dragging the woman behind him with the other. It was dark outside. That was why he didn't notice. The house had risen 200 feet on its anti-gravity rays. The ground below was very hard. The house sang softly and waited for the return of its masters. Remember to hit the like button to support the channel, and to not miss out on more stories, make sure to subscribe. Something Will Turn Up by David Mason. Narrated by William Skye. Maybe it had to do with this being a non-parity universe, perhaps. Some things can't be simply inverted after all. You Mr. Rapp? Stanley Rapp blinked, considering the matter. He always thought over everything very carefully. Of course, some questions were easier to answer than others. This one, for instance. He had very few doubts about his name. Stanley Rapp said. Yes. He stared at the bearded young man. Living in the village, even on the better side of it, one saw beards every day, all shapes and sizes of beard. This one was not a psychoanalyst beard or a folk singer beard, not even an actor beard. This was the scraggly variety, almost certainly a poet beard. Mr. Rapp, while holding no particular prejudice against poets, had not sent for one, he was sure of that. Then he noticed the tool case in the bearded young man's hand, lettered large, Lightning Service TV Hi-Fi. "Oh," Stanley said, nodding. "You're the man to fix the TV set." "You know it, Dad," the young man said, coming in. He shut the door behind him and stared around the apartment. "What a wild pad! Where the idiot box, eh?" The pleasantly furnished, neat little apartment was not what Mr. Rapp had ever thought of as a wild pad. But the village had odd standards, Mr. Rapp knew. Chacun a son goût, he had said on moving into the apartment 10 years ago. Not aloud, of course, because he had only taken 1 year of French and would never have trusted his accent. But chacun a son goût anyway. "The television set," Mr. Rapp said, translating. "Oh, yes." He went to the closet door and opened it. Reaching inside, he brought out an imposingly large TV set mounted on a wheeled table. The bearded repairman whistled. "In the closet," the repairman said admiringly. "Crazy. You go in there to watch it, or you let it talk to itself?" "Oh, well, I don't exactly watch it at all," Mr. Rapp said a little sadly. "I mean, I can't. That's why I called you." "Lightning's here, have no fear," the bearded one said, approaching the set with a professional air. "Like in the closet, hey?" He bent over the set appraisingly. "I thought you were a square, Pops, but I can see you. Hey, this is like too much. Man, I don't want to pry, but why is this box upside down?" "I wish I knew," Mr. Rapp said. He sat down and leaned back, sighing. This was going to be difficult, he knew. He had already had to explain it to the last 3 repairmen, and he was getting tired of explaining. Although he thought somehow that this young man might understand it a little more quickly than the others had. "I've had a couple of other repairmen look it over," Mr. Rapp told the bearded one. They gave up." "Dilettantes," commented the beard. "Oh no," Mr. Rapp said. "One of them was from the company that made it, but they couldn't do anything." "Let's try it," the repairman said, plugging the cord into a wall socket. He returned to the set and switched it on without changing its upside-down position. The big screen lit almost at once. A pained face appeared with a large silhouetted hammer striking the image's forehead in a rhythmic beat. "Immediate relief from headache," a bland voice said as the pictured face broke into a broad smile. The repairman shuddered and turned down the sound, staring at the image with widened eyes as he did so. "Dad, I don't want to bug you," the repairman said, his eyes still on the screen. "Only look, the set is upside down, right?" "Right," said Mr. Rapp. "Only the picture," the repairman paused, trying to find the right phrase. "I mean, the picture's flipped, like it's wrong side up too. Only right side up now." "Exactly," said Mr. Rapp. "You see, that's the trouble. I put the set upside down because of that." "Cool," the repairman said, watching the picture. "I mean, so why worry? You got a picture, right? You want me to turn the picture around? I can do that with a little fiddling around inside the set. Uh-oh, Dad, something's happening." The repairman bent closer, staring at the picture. It was now showing a busty young woman singer, her mouth opened but silent since the sound was turned down. She was slowly rotating as Rapp and the bearded repairman watched, turning until her face, still mouthing silent song, hung upside down on the screen. "It always does that," Rapp said. "No matter which way I put the set, the picture's always upside down." "No, man," the repairman said pleadingly. "Look, I took a course. I mean, the best school, you dig? It don't work that way. It just can't."
"It does, though," Rapp pointed out. "And that's what the other repair people said too. They took it out and brought it back, and it still did it. Not when they had it in their shops, but the minute it came back here, the picture went upside down again."
"Wow," the repairman said, backing slowly away from the set, but watching it with the tense gaze of a man who expected trouble. After a minute, he moved toward it again and took hold of the cabinet sides, lifting. "I don't want to put you down, Pops," he said, grunting. "Only I got to see this. Over she goes." He set it down again, right side up. The picture, still the singer's face, remained in a relatively upright position for another moment, and then slowly rolled over upside down again.
"You see," Mr. Rapp said, shrugging, "I guess I'll have to buy another set. Except I'd hate to have it happen again, and this one did cost quite a lot."
"You couldn't trade it in either," the repairman agreed. "Not to me, anyway." Suddenly he snapped his fingers. "Hey now, sideways?"
"You mean on its side?"
"Just for kicks." The repairman gripped the set again. "On the side." He set the cabinet down on one side and stepped back to regard the picture again. Slowly the picture turned once more, and once again, relative to the usual directions of up and down, the picture was stubbornly, completely inverted. "It's onto that too," the repairman said gloomily. He sat down on the floor and assumed a kind of yoga posture, peering between his legs. "You could try it this way, Pops."
"I'm pretty stiff," Mr. Rapp told him, shaking his head.
"Yeah," the repairman said, re-inverting himself. For a long while he sat, pulling his beard thoughtfully, a look of deep thought on his face. The reversed singer faded out to give place to an earnestly grinning announcer who pointed emphatically to a large upside-down sign bearing the name of a product. "Watching it this way could get to be a fad," the repairman said at last, almost inaudibly. He fell silent again, and Mr. Rapp sadly began to realize that even this bearded and confident young man had apparently been stopped like the others. "The way I look at it, like there's a place where science hangs up," the bearded one spoke finally. "Like, I don't want to put down my old guru at the Second Avenue School of Electronics," he added solemnly, "but you got to admit that there are things not dreamed of in your philosophy, Horatio. You dig?"
"My name isn't Horatio," Mr. Rapp objected.
"I was quoting," the repairman told him. "I mean, this is a thing like outside material means. Supernatural, sort of. Did you cross up any witches lately, Pops?"
"Oh dear," Mr. Rapp said sadly. He shook his head. "No, I haven't, offended any witches. Not that I know of."
He regarded the inverted picture for a moment. Then, as the repairman's words began to sink in, Mr. Rapp looked at him apprehensively.
"Witches?" Mr. Rapp asked. "But, I mean, that's all superstition, isn't it? And anyway, well, television sets?"
"They used to dry up cows, but who keeps cows?" the bearded one said ominously. "Why not television sets? Like, I happen to be personally acquainted with several witches and like that. The village is full of them. However," he rose and stalked toward the set, his eyes glittering in a peculiar way, "you're a lucky one, Daddy-O. Back in my square days, I did some reading up on the hookups between poetry and magic. Now, I'm a poet. Therefore, and to wit, I'm also a magician. On this hang-up, I'm going to try magic. Electronics won't work, that's for sure."
"But..."
Mr. Rapp was not quite sure why he disapproved, but he did. On the other hand, the repairman appeared to be very definitely sure of what he was doing as he peered into the back of the television set.
"Have you ever tried this method before?"
"Never ran into any hexed TV sets before," the repairman said, straightening up. "Don't worry though, I got the touch, like with poetry. Same thing, in fact. All magic spells rhyme, see? Well, I used to rhyme back before I really started swinging. Anybody can rhyme, and the rest is just instinct." He had been scribbling something on a notepad as he spoke. Now he bent down to take another look at the back of the set and nodded with an air of assurance. "The tube layout," the repairman told Mr. Rapp, exhibiting his notebook. "That and Ohm's law and a couple of Hindu bits I picked up listening to the UN on the radio makes a first-class spell." Mr. Rapp backed away nervously. "Look, if it's all the same to you—" "Don't flip." The repairman consulted his notebook and moved to stand in front of the screen. The picture showed a smiling newscaster pointing to a map which indicated something ominous. "Cool, man," the repairman said. "Here we go." He lifted his hands in an ecclesiastical gesture, and his voice became a deep boom. 6SN7, 6AC5, 6 and 7 millivolts are running down the line. E equals R times A, that's the way it goes. Go round the other way, Subhas Chandra Bose. Afterward, Mr. Rapp was never quite sure exactly what happened. He had an impression of a flash of light and an odd, indefinite sound rather like the dropping of a cosmic garbage can lid. But possibly neither the light nor the sound actually happened. At any rate, there were no complaints from the neighbours later on. However, the lighted screen was certainly doing something. "Crazy," the repairman said in awed tones. Mr. Rapp, his view partly blocked by the repairman, could not see exactly what was happening on the screen. However, he caught a brief glimpse of the newscaster's face. It was right side up, but no longer smiling. Instead, the pictured face wore a look of profound alarm, and the newsman was apparently leaning far forward, his face almost out of focus because of its nearness to the lens. Just for a moment, Mr. Rapp could have sworn he saw a chair floating up past the agonized expression on the screen. Then the screen went grey and a panel of lettering appeared, shaking slightly. "Our picture has been temporarily interrupted. Normal service will be restored as soon as possible. Please stand by." "I was going to give you a bill," the repairman said. "Only maybe we better just charge it up to customer relations." The letters remained steady on the screen and Mr. Rapp studied them. They were right side up. "You fixed it," Mr. Rapp said a little uncertainly. "I mean, it's working. I ought to pay." "I goofed," the repairman said. He picked up his tools and moved toward the door. "Like, I won't mention it to anybody if you won't, but I goofed all right. Didn't you see the picture?" "But whatever you did, it worked," Mr. Rapp said. "The picture's right side up." "I know," the repairman said. "Only somewhere there's a studio that's upside down. I just goofed, Pops, that's all." He closed the door behind him, leaving Mr. Rapp still staring at the immobile right-side-up message on the glowing screen. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the stories and want more, make sure to subscribe and check the bell notifications to get everything I publish. Going even further, definitely go check out my Substack. There are lots of free stories there too, as well as some paid ones. Link in the description. Meanwhile, check out the first mini-anthology if you haven't already. That's on screen now.